Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about merging vertexes and edges and to have more control over your geometry flow. So I'm going to go ahead and create a polygon primitive. Go to create, polygon primitive. I'm just going to start out with a cube in this example. There's my cube. And as you might have recalled, we can use the cut tools or create divisions multiple different ways. For example, you can select the object, go into the inputs in the channel box, and add divisions here. Or we can use our multi-cut tool using Control-Shift-X, and we can add divisions by drawing divisions on here. So if I click and hold, drag divisions here, add divisions, and make very specific cuts, creating different types of geometry. And again, as a recap, you can also hold down Control in the multi-cut tool to insert edge loops into your geometry. Now again, this does not cross, at least it shouldn't. Okay, yeah, it does not cross inside of polygons or triangles. You see it stopped, even though it was previewing the entire thing, which was strange. But it did not actually draw across the entire, the triangles in this case. So it only will draw across quads. So I have all these edges here, and again, this is a persistent tool. So if I want to get out of this, you can hit Escape, or you can hit any other your tools, so like W, E, or R. I usually just hit the W key to switch to my Translate tool. So I have all this geometry here, and yes, we could come in here and let's say double click an edge, hit Control Delete, and get rid of this edge, for example. But let's say we want more control for some reason. Maybe this is going to be something special right here, but I need this edge to connect and things like that. So like I'm trying to get very specific geometry flow for a project, and now we need to talk about merging vertices. Now Maya relatively recently, kind of cleaned this up. I believe there's still a few of the legacy tools in here, but I'm going to go over the ones obviously I like the best first, and then kind of I'll touch on the other ones as well. But one tool that they added relatively recently was I'm a huge fan of is the Target Weld tool. And the Target Weld tool works in multiple different modes. You can find this under Mesh Tools, Target Weld. And what it does is it tries to weld subcomponent modes with other subcomponent modes. So if right now I'm in edge mode, if I were to try to do it Target Weld in edge mode, it will technically work. It's not the way I use it, but you can do it this way. So if I hit Target Weld, I come over here, click and hold on an edge and drag to another edge. Again, this is exactly what I'm going to do, but you can see it's going to drag this edge to this edge, and it's going to merge these. So that's pretty good. I mean, that works pretty nicely. I generally don't do it this way, but it works perfectly fine. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to right-click and hold, go to Vertex Mode, and thankfully, like Target Weld, it's still active, which is kind of cool that you can switch subcomponents and do that. It's the little things. Now I'm in Vertex Mode, and Target Weld is still active because again, this is a persistent tool. To exit any persistent tool, just hit one of your other transform tools. In my case, I usually hit W for translate. But now I'm in Vertex Mode with Target Weld, and I'm going to click and drag the vertex to another vertex. So you can see I'm just clicking and holding, and it's drawing that little orange line, and it's showing, so it's going to take this vertex and move it here and merge them. So this was Maya recently combined all these tools together, which I really like. So you can sit here and merge these. And granted, you can go down the list and do this like more, which this would have been just the same as the edge mode, but whatever. You can do that. And it doesn't have to be the same one. I mean, if I want for some reason this to be over here, it's going to look really weird. But you can see that's not very good geometry flow. But again, I'm not trying about technique right now. We're just focusing on tools and how they function. So you can see I'm just clicking, holding, and dragging these. You can make this as many as you want. Again, have a lot of control, and you really break it really quickly if you want to, obviously. And you can see, because I dragged these ones, it kind of broke the normals here. So interesting, maybe I'll come back in, just like we did from our bevel lecture, select these ones. Maybe I will go up to Mesh Display and Harden Edge, for example. And I don't think that looks any better, but you can definitely see the difference between those kind of forms now. So that is the merge the Target Weld tool. We can also use the Collapse tool, which what it does is under Edit Mesh Collapse, it takes whatever you have selected and collapses into a single point. So if I come in here, and I don't use this one too often, but if I select some faces, for example, and I come up to Edit Mesh Collapse, you can see it merges all those faces to a single point. So do I use this one? Not too often. How I typically use the Collapse tool is to reverse a chamfer vertex operation, which I'll talk about in this lecture. Let me just double check here real quick. If there's any others, these I want to cover. Collapse, we covered Collapse, we covered Target Weld. Yeah, we're good there. So I mentioned how I use Collapse to counter a chamfer vertex. So let me show you how I would typically do this. So oftentimes when I'm modeling with cylinders especially, we have an edge up here, which can be kind of annoying. And what you might want to consider doing is maybe turning the caps off or just deleting those edges and having a single edge like this. Or what you can also do is you can select the point in the center. This is not exactly the same thing. So I undid my turning on my subdivision caps to 0. Undid that. So it's back to 1. Click on one vertex in the center, and you can go up to Mesh Tools. Is it in Mesh Tools? My mistake. It's under Edit Mesh. Chamfer Vertices. What this does is take that one vertex, and this is very similar to a bevel operation. It will turn this vertex into a face. You can see when I did that, again, Edit Mesh, Chamfer Vertices. It took that that one vertex and made it what it needed to do. Looked at the geometry around it and gave it enough points to turn it into a face and keep it relatively planar with where it was. So this face is a lot easier to click on and scale and so on. So like for example, I use this a lot of times if I want to go ahead and start extruding things up and down. I will select that one vertex in the middle, chamfer it. Or what you can do as the opposite is you can go through the cylinder and select a vertex. And again, I did this with the channel box. Click on the inputs, subdivision caps, 0. So you can see it's kind of the same idea inside this face. There is some minor differences, as you can see. This has like a little ring around it. But this is great when used in conjunction with like the Extrude Tool. So I chamfer something, I'll come and use the Extrude Tool. For example, go face, click this face now. This is a lot easier to grab. It's an inside polygon, which is awful. But I can fix that later. So I select this face, hit Control E for extrude. Again, when you use the Extrude Tool, you're grabbing the blue arrow most of the time. So you can see I can drag this down or up, depending which way I want to go. And then if I want to get this back to, let's say this is what I want, but I want to make this triangle shape. Now I could do a triangulation operation, or what I could do, which I'm not going to do this time, or what I could do is I can extrude this slightly. I'm going to switch to scale by clicking on these boxes and scale uniformly. You can see I'm kind of bringing it back. But what I do is, as soon as I started extruding and bringing it in, I'm going to bring this back to a point. That's my goal at least. All I have to do is come up here and go to Edit Mesh Collapse, and it makes it back to a point. Unfortunately, I did not center it, which that's a mistake. So you can see this will work as well as doing other things. So that's the Collapse tool. It's another way to get rid of geometry. I don't use the Collapse as much, but I definitely love the Target Weld. That's one of my favorites. Should bind that to a quick key, to be completely honest. So yeah, that's those. And then we also, as a bonus, we covered the Chamfer Vertex, which is found under Edit Mesh, Chamfer Vertices. And we talked about the Collapse function, which is under also Edit Mesh, Collapse. All right.